Malcolm Ma'at, everybody. I appreciate your appreciation of that track, which is called Ambience, which is from the A New Radiance album that Nassim released back in July. So another plug yet again to get your digital download if you haven't already done so, or order the CD for the metaphysical mood music of this tradition on our website, templeofanew.org. But before we go any further, let's open the way properly with our Sunday prayer and with our roll call. Sound like a plan?
So,
All right, so everybody please join me in saying, Amatu and Panatir,
I'm not sure.
Sawek Tuam and Panatir,
Sawek tuam and Panatir.
Audu Auma,
Auduma.
Keti Paharu.
Keti Paharu.
The translation, give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netaru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akeru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Amen Ma'at. Ma'akeru.
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 Dua Natter. Yes, Dua Natter. All right, everybody. We joined in the room here with the Kerhev Hasedi Kever. Y'all know he always here to help us on the technical side of things. And we have Wepet Ma'akara also in the background. She's the person who normally, if y'all see somebody commenting, Temple of a New comments in the chat, that's Wepet Ma'akara, y'all.
Police in the chat.
Police in the chat. The righteous and respectable chat. She's always trying to keep up with you guys, with your questions, your comments, etc. And also to post helpful quotables from things Nassim said so y'all can remember and reflect deeply on it. So shout out to Wepet Ma'akara. Y'all gonna see her in the chat again today. So that's who we got in the building. Nassim, myself, Kerhev, and Wepet. But who we got in on the line? Like, who's here? What's up? So let's do the roll call. Like, where y'all hailing in from? I see Wabet Shimset is hailing in from Connecticut. You laughing at me? Yes. Oh my goodness, the hip hop heads in the building. All right, yes. So Wabet Shimset we got in the building, from Connecticut. We got Bloomfield, New Jersey in the building. Dallas, Texas is in the building. I know I saw Bachmanite here from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Shout out, my love. Ellicott City, Maryland.
Okay.
Nice. Who else? New Haven, Connecticut. East Orange, New Jersey. Edmond, Oklahoma. Yes. Jersey by way of Harlem. Philly is in the building. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis. Atlanta. Newark, New Jersey. Yes. Dua Netter. Philly in the building. Okay. Give thanks. I'm like, that can't possibly be. It's more people online than that. Like, where the rest of y'all at? Okay.
Get a little nice outside and everything.
Dua Netter. Offset Netteru joining us from Guyana. Give thanks. Dua Netter. Yes, Baltimore, Maryland is in the building. That's what's up. Give thanks.
Krills is watching.
Dua Netter. Yeah. All right, give thanks. We're always grateful to see you all joining us here,
Right.
and appreciate the time that you're taking out of your day, your schedule, to come, spend time with us to get this word and to discuss this legacy and hopefully enrich and enhance your own practice of Ma'at and your own life
because that is the governing deity of the year.
2.
All things ma'at this year. All
Two.
things ma'at in conversation. All things ma'at in all interaction.
Yes.
So let's get into it. So today, I guess fortunately or unfortunately for some, we're going to deal with the topic and the idea of emotions. So it's going to be a bit heavy, not heavy as in deep, because some people say things when it's deep, they say, oh, that's heavy. But we're talking about heavy in emotional value. Because in spirituality, we often find ourselves struggling with emotions. Actually, from my experience over the past 20-something years, the spiritual community doesn't do well with their emotions and what to do with them. So part of my language, most of the time we're piss poor at managing our emotions, and some of us, or many of us, is just outright messy with them. So we have this conundrum of what to do with the emotions. So now the past 2 communions, you saw me express a certain level of transparency. You witnessed me come forth with a certain level of transparency. So some of you seen me challenged with my health from the past few communions. You see me admit to the idea that I hold grief, that I was holding grief in my lungs. And I said, grief represents that which we fail. What did we say? Fail to accept. What is it's the failure to accept
That
what has
already
happened
Yeah.
already. And I said, leaders hold an immense amount of grief. So we have this high spirit, we've been taught such this high spiritual philosophy about who we are, where we come from, and what it is that we should do, that there's an irony in that. Then the irony is sometimes our very own standards is what actually triggers things like insecurity and anxiety amongst us all. And our community has peculiar ways of handling this insecurity and this anxiety. Some factions of people in the society, they run or they pull back when they feel insecure or when they're going through anxiety from possibly failing to live up to the standard. And they'll leave their duty and everything. And then there's another faction of the society that when they go through it, they suffer silently. That's the type I am. I think that's the type too. So you suffer silently, you grin and bear. And some people like, why do y'all sit there? Why do y'all do that? You shouldn't have to do that. While we respect those who run, and sometimes that is what it is that you have to do. You have to heal yourself, and some people pull back and they leave their duty. But at the same time, somebody has to stay back and hold the reins, because we're guiding a ship towards some place, and that's why it becomes very personal to me when I hear people disrespect leaders or say we don't need the leaders, and I'm like, Negro, you wouldn't know what you know and be on your path if it wasn't for some leader who was suffering silently just so you could get what it is that you get. So I want to celebrate all the leaders, even the fallen leaders, even the leaders that felt like they had to step away for a while, because this is a thankless job, and it's an uncelebrated job to get out in front and kind of hold the psychic debris of the people, because people project things onto you. So some people be like, well, sometimes we even hold it on to our own detriment. And some people are asked, well, what are y'all grieving? What's there to grieve? And I would say we're grieving the loss of promise, the loss of the promise of transformation. Because we all came to the legacy. When you're coming from the church and wherever it is that you thought you had to leave to come back home, you came back home with the promise of transformation. Like, I'm going to come back home and my life is going to be all right and I'm going to walk in my power. And when you find yourself stuck or even struggling with that charge, that becomes embarrassing to some, and that's where the grief comes. You're like, damn, I failed. I'm not where I thought I should be, even after 5 years in, even after 10 years in. So you start beating up on yourself because this legacy has very high standards. So we're grieving, or a lot of people, especially leaders, are grieving at the loss of promise. So I want to deviate from that to talk about something else real quick, but it's all part of the same thing. I'm noticing the conversation that's going online between men and women. So it appears to be women are having a poor emotional reaction to men stating what they're looking for in women. but this is only coming on the tail end of 25 years on public access channels of men having to hear how they disappoint women and what women explaining what they want from men. So what I'm getting to is like we've come to this dangerous point of our evolution that men and women are now telling each other that after all we've been through, after all the changing and shifting, changing and transformation, we're still not enough. Somehow we're still not enough for one another. And this is a very dangerous concept that we have to be very careful about, because the African spirituality is based on community. So we can't have women and men comfortable with just going their own way, because it's antithetical to what it is that we're supposed to be about. So communities start with couples. Couples build families, and communities are based off a collection of families. So we get into this individualistic thing, we're actually undermining what it is that we thought we were signing up for in the first place. Now, also in this discussion, there's this theory based off of statistics about women. They said that after a certain age, if women aren't married and have children and are well on their way to that, they're not going to be able to do it. And they're saying certain women they call this thing the wall, and they say you hit that wall, there's no going back, and you definitely can't go forward. So certain women, after a certain age, they start, in the spirit of desperation, start showing signs of desperation, trying to garner attention or strategically place themselves to get chosen, while statistically you're saying it's not going to happen if you didn't do it by a certain age. So I'm not here to have a provocative conversation about men and women. I want to take that metaphor of the wall and apply it to what's going on in us as an African community, spiritual community, nationalistic, us as melanated people, period. So this idea of a wall, because I'm talking about grief and we're talking about fear, we're talking about emotions and their emotions in our lives. So because you ask, what are leaders grieving about? Could it be that we hit this wall? Could it be that we were supposed to accomplish something a long time ago that we didn't? So now here in 2022, we're now acting in vain, and what it is that we're doing could possibly be futile. That's what leaders are fearing. That's what leaders are grieving. Like, damn, certain things were supposed to have been done 20 years ago, and we didn't do it. And we're still struggling this conversation, trying to get people to do it. And it's looking like people don't want to do it anymore. So it's almost feeling like at certain points we're going through emotion, we're going through motions in conversations and going through motions teaching, when everyone or a lot of people are just afraid to say they gave up, or they don't care anymore, or they want to do something else. So this is part of why if you all notice in my discussions in the past year, so I won't say veered away. I don't limit myself to just talking exclusively about the Kemetic legacy in the historical context, because I believe that there's other conversations to be had. There's other conversations that need to be had based on just talking about our behavior and our conduct, and how our behavior and our conduct is actually undermining everything that we say that we stand for. So if I don't talk about it, who's going to talk about it? And are we just going to stay stuck in cliche conversations? So it bothers me that, because I know that you know that we know what it is that we're supposed to do, and we're stuck refurbishing lectures and teachings about what it is that we know we're supposed to be doing, while at the same time knowing that you're resisting the process. So this type of talk turns certain people off. We might have lost a significant amount of the people because of what we're talking about, but somehow in the past 2 years, I know we doubled the citizenship of the temple because of these talks. So we might have lost the superficial. We don't got 1,000 people on. So that says a whole lot about our community, who claim that they're serious about nation building and things like that, but are scared to have the hard conversations. Here at the Temple of the New, we specialize in the hard conversation. We say and talk about what was not been said. We would specialize in the unsaid. So there's absolutely no reason why any Black, African Senate, or melanated, whatever you want to call it, Moorish or whatever, there's no such reason, there's no possible reason why all of these organizations are not wildly successful in 2022. After all the information that's been put out in the past 20-something years, there's no reason no organization that's supposed to be about the empowerment of the people should not be wildly successful or well on their way. And I have good reason to believe the reason for that is in the past 15 years, or with the advent of social media, we've been distracted by this obsession with personal happiness and satisfaction. And I think that's where I left off at the last communion. I said happiness and pleasure are not good goals. We don't shun them, but they're not good goals. And everyone who made happiness and pleasure their goal actually suffered. So this time we're not going to talk. We done with COVID for a while. It is what it is. You either got it or you catching it now. You going through it now, or whatever you're going to get in the future. We survived. It's okay. We're moving on. And we ain't having talks about the government. We're going to go back to a classic communion, get down to some real stuff of what's going on with us. And just so it can be said, all of those things I spoke about on those things were just as important as this. But now we getting back into our groove. The spring is coming. We about to spring right back in the step where we need to be. So let us continue the discussion on happiness. And I think as spiritualists, as well as regular folks, we all still in 2022 are struggling with the idea of happiness. I think many of us don't know what it looks like or what it should look like. I remember a post you put out, like, what was that, at the beginning of the year, and it's about holidays and stuff, and you were saying you was tired of conscious folks with the attitude about.
Oh, yeah.
Could you reiterate that? Oh,
hold on.
We got disconnected.
On Facebook, our Facebook is saying something about the wireless connection, so the broadcast has been paused. Okay, looks like we back. Facebook.
Okay.
Are you monitoring it? Did you get a bleep? You didn't get a bleep?
I didn't get a bleep at all, no.
Okay, all right, so on that thing.
How was that? Be like, he's keeping it too real. We have to interrupt. He was better off talking about COVID.
The conspiracy theory, like, shut it down,
Go back to COVID. Don't actually help them.
But no, every year around New Year's Eve, there's an abundance of posts from so-called conscious people that are like, oh, this isn't the real New Year's. We don't celebrate in New Year's Eve. Like, the real New Year starts in the spring. As any person in touch with nature or in tune with the cosmos would know, this is not the real New Year's. The real New Year's is in the spring. And
he's like, but do you celebrate it in the spring?
Right.
What do you
celebrate? When do you celebrate it? Like, why don't you celebrate everything? Celebrate the winter solstice and celebrate the spring equinox and celebrate the Feast of Sekhmet and celebrate Marsharu. Like, why would you miss any opportunity or occasion to celebrate or be in tune with magical, divine, spiritual energies? So that was what my post was about.
So, as she seconded, in my opinion, that spiritualists or people in the spirituality have a hard time knowing how to, or recognizing happiness, or they have a problem with any sign that someone's actually happy or pleased or fulfilled about something that they're doing, where it's almost like they're undermining anybody who smiles too much or seems to be content because they think we're supposed to be in the struggle, which we are. But I'll get into that. We have to admit that many of our perceptions about happiness and love and things like that are coming from like romance novels, comic books, and movies and things like that. So what happens is that affects our ability to act properly and well in live time and in reality. In my observation, when it comes to black folk in America, our ideas surrounding love, happiness, success, and fulfillment are intimately connected with struggle. We came up watching Good Times in the Jeffersons. Some of us are the example of the Jeffersons moving on up. You know what I'm saying? So those shows affected our psyche. Some people that got certain people out the projects because they saw George Jefferson do it. And even in Good Times, even though they was getting on their nerves and they might have not had a whole lot, we knew they all loved one another.
Yeah.
So love in the black community, love, success, fulfillment, and all these things are intimately connected with struggle. I'll even go on a limb and say, even with Europeans and their level of success, their ideas of love, fulfillment, and all that comes with struggle, because this is why we create fantasy. This is why we create entertainment. Entertainment is used to provoke fantastic emotion. So people created novels and comic books and things like that to distract from the reality of this. that life is harsh and life will kick you behind. And our ancestors knew that. And yes, there is an import in the idea of entertainment, but in the last 20 something years, we have the advent of social media. We already had entertainment through comic books and movies and stuff, so now social media is on. So social media is now added to this conversation that has now made the imagination triumph over intelligence. And now we're in trouble. Now everybody's in their emotions and everybody in their feelings. You can't tell anybody nothing. You can't suggest anybody anything because everybody doesn't want to, they want their emotions recognized and not marginalized. So now it's even hard to have a conversation about reality and what works or what we need to do because of social media, because it's the triumph of imagination over intelligence. So I go back. So the ideas of love, or with black folks, the ideas surrounding love, happiness, and fulfillment is intimately connected with struggle. Because there's a dance of tension and release that's going on. So here's the metaphysic part of the conversation. In life, there's a dance between tension and release. So what are we talking about? Tension represents your ideas surrounding struggle, your ideas surrounding challenge, your ideas surrounding pain. That's the tension part of the dance. And the release part of the dance is your ideas surrounding freedom, your ideas surrounding enjoyment, your ideas surrounding relaxation. But if we're grown folks now, if we're spiritual folks, if we're mature spiritual folks, you know you can't just have freedom all the time. You know you can't just have relaxation all the time. You know you can't just exist in constant enjoyment because those things are measured by struggle, pain. You get it? Struggle, pain, and challenge. So it's an intimate dance. So it's going to come down, your quality of life is going to come down to how well you can dance. It's interesting in the metaphysics, what did they call it? The Hermetic principles. One of the principles is rhythm. And it's interesting in African culture, rhythm and music is in the forefront of African spirituality. It's very key. So do you have rhythm? How well do you dance the dance of life? We've seen entertainers go from not having anything to having everything just to watch the everything that they've attained destroy them. And that's deep. We watch people that went from nothing to everything to watch the everything destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
They failed at the dance of life, that dance between tension and release. They thought, if I only had this amount of money, I would be straight. If I get this next hit, I'll be straight. The next thing you know, they're on drugs, and because they were severely unhappy. They were poor in managing their emotions, or were messy in managing their emotions. Last week I was watching Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. It's a good show about the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. It's a fascinating show, very deep. Learned a lot of eye-opening insight and got me looking at both Suge and Puffy with the side eye, like, yo, what the heck is going on? But what stood out to me was a conversation of Afeni Shakur and Tupac. The young Tupac, he was like maybe 7 years old. He was on a fire escape reading a book, a conscious book, a book on poetry, I think, maybe Langston Hughes. And his mother came up to his mother always interacted with him as though he was a man. So he was cheated out of his childhood, in a sense. She always addressed him as a man, and she came to the window complaining, the landlord said he gonna kick us out if we don't pay the light bill. And Tupac was very sharp. He said, Mom, he said that last month. So he's like, we still here. He ain't kicked us out. And he was pretty much saying she needed to cut it out with her nonsense. And he's like, Mom, I'm tired of this nonsense. Because he's like, why does a child have to read on the fire escape? Because the mom didn't pay the bill to pay so they could have light.
Right.
But she was struggling with the addiction at the time. And she told him, she's like, I named you Tupac after, I don't know, maybe he was an Aztec warrior who was a revolutionary leader for his people. She's like, I named you after that person for a reason. So she was like, son, I'm gonna need you to be a man. And he was like, but Mom, I'm tired of all this nonsense and stuff. And she looked at him with compassion in her eyes, and she says, and taking enlightenment, she told him about who Tupac was. And she said, there is no story without a struggle. And I thought that was profound. And so we watched Tupac's life unfold. We watched him do the dance between tension and release. And so nobody knows his struggle. They just seeing the happy-go-lucky Tupac, but we seen him do the dance between tension and release to the point where it killed him. He was not happy at the time, around the time that he died. He was so unhappy that he made some poor decisions that actually led to his death. So once again, it goes back to how well you do the dance of life, or are you really doing the dance of death? So I want to reflect on a time where I went to Jamaica about 25 years ago, maybe 26 years ago. And I was, when we go to these islands, we be all in the resorts and stuff, acting like the white folks. Oh, I'm in Jamaica. Like, you ain't in Jamaica. You're in the hotel, on the beach, in some controlled environment. But I was already conscientious of that when I went. So I left the hotel and went down. Like, you go a quarter mile down the street, you down there in Shantytown and stuff. But I wasn't scared. I'm speaking to the people. So my stay, I befriended. Well, in my opinion, I befriended the locals and having very enlightened conversation with the locals, and they're very natural, organic, spiritual people. So my mind is blown that they know what they know without reading books. All of us come to a lot of our knowledge comes through reading books. And so he has the brother I was speaking to had a natural, organic wisdom about life, and I was blowing his mind about the Kemetic stuff because they don't have books like that. So I was showing him the connection between Ethiopia and ancient Egypt, and he never heard that before in his life. The point is, I walked away from that conversation kind of bewildered about how we live our lives over here, and with all that we have, and we consistently remind ourselves that we don't have enough. So here are these people over there that have nothing, or what we consider less than nothing, and yet they have more peace of mind. How is that possible? We're missing some pieces. If somebody got less than nothing, but they're more at peace with their life than us, and they look at us they feel like we're wasteful and that we have more than enough, and yet we struggle with peace of mind. So we have these ideas of what would make us happy or what would bring us pleasure, and those ideas are actually destructive a lot of the times. Like, I want to tell you all about my Saul, my jewelry. Like, I experienced great pleasure at appreciating the ingenuity of what Baba Heru puts into his jewelry. I believe he actually surpassed the ancestors on a lot. Once the honor the ancestors, people be acting like we can't surpass them. Like, the ancestors were trying to surpass one another. So it's okay if we get a thing or two right and we surpass them. It's okay. They want that. Like, why wouldn't they want us to surpass them? They looking at us with the side eye like, yo, y'all ain't doing that old, y'all still trying to do that old stuff. Y'all ain't taking it to the next level. So Baba Heru is one of the ones that's taking it to the next level. And it's always an honor and a sacred honor to purchase and wear what he calls jewelry. I see this brolic stuff looking like brass knuckles. So the interesting thing is, I've purchased what some may consider pricey pieces from Baba Heru, and I had to run a check on my emotions about it, because your emotions pretty much governed by oxytocin levels. So it is your chemical state that determines your emotions. So you get your chemical state right, you can be balancing your emotion. It doesn't always have to be this hard thing. So I had to check my oxytocin level. Why? Because I place an order, and with full anticipation, you be like, yeah, I'm gonna be straight. This is gonna be my accent piece, and I'm gonna be like, wow, see that? I'm gonna be straight. And everybody's gonna be sweating, and I'm gonna be adored. The best thing since the pyramids. No, I'm just playing. That's the vanity. So so I get the piece, and check this out. And you all it might happen to you with food or with a purchase of a car or whatever. And not even 5 to 10 minutes after I got it, I'm already placing the order for the next thing that's exceeded the price of what it is that I got. So you see my fingers and stuff. I've gone through this price. I've gone through this process many times. So I had to check my emotions, because if I didn't check my emotions, it will put me in a financial hole. And that will make me no different than the rappers that we see. And they got all this brolic stuff on to distract from the fact that they're empty inside. I don't believe I'm empty inside, so I had to run a check on my oxytocin level. So what I'm saying, that happiness and the ideas about happiness is a whole, and if you chase that thing that can never be quenched, that can never be fulfilled, and if you chase that, that's the thing that leads to addiction. That's the thing that leads to addictive behavior. So now I don't want to seem like it's all doom and gloom and stuff, but and that we shouldn't strive for happiness. Is that happiness is inevitable in life if you're mature and you learn how to appreciate things that both great and as well as small. But when I get in some of these moods sometimes, you know, it seems futile. When I'm talking about the grief thing again, about grief and fear, failure to accept what's happened already. Things happen to our people, things that happened that we felt should have happened, things that didn't happen that we felt should have happened. Y'all know what I'm saying? That didn't happen. So sometimes that gets to you. And what happens is I try to contemplate the ancestors. What did they pray about and how did they pray for it? And I try to reestablish myself in principle, because we teach that it's principles that govern life. But sometimes your current reality contradicts the principles you say you're living by. So you have to kind of hold to the vision, even when it appears that your life in front of you is contradicting you. Because sometimes I'll say like this: your current situation could be the result of the misuse, or I'll call it the irresponsible creation of the misuse of your faculties that determine how you co-create your reality. I'll say it again: sometimes your current situation that's so bad could be the irresponsible creation of the misuse of the faculties that are responsible for you co-creating your reality. So you don't totally create it yourself. There's a divine intelligence at work that comes in the form of the Netzur that you have to negotiate with, whether consciously or unconsciously. So you be like, well, this is not what I wanted. Like, yeah, you put out something, but the divine intelligence of the universe says you need this other thing too. So everything that you want and that's coming to you is tempered by divine intervention in a sense. So I looked up a prayer. It's a prayer of a man named Nefer Abu. It's a prayer of Nefer Abu to Neter in his name of Ptah, Neb Ma'at. I like how that's presented, because we talk about the Creator as oneness. We often have this conversation, oh, we're not pagans, we don't believe in many gods. So I like this translation. It said, the prayer to the Neter, the Most High, everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, the everything yet is no thing that other traditions call God. It says the prayer of Nefer Abu to the Neter in his name of Ptah. So we all venerate Neter, and the Neter has many names that he is known by and comes by, and those are the Neter. So I like that was responsible how it was translated. So the prayer of Nefer Abu to the Neter in his name of Ptah, Neb Ma'at, meaning the master or the owner of balance, the owner of reciprocity. It starts by saying D and F, Uncle Ja, Seneb, Seped, Kurd, Kesut, Mesut. So it says, may he give life, prosperity, health, alertness, favors, and love. Y'all hear that litany? That's a very interesting litany. It's a life. Everybody wants life. Prosperity. Everybody wants prosperity. We talk about the Christians are rocking out with that prosperity gospel. Everyone wants prosperity. Naturally, everyone wants health. So these are the things you got to say, so you don't take it for granted, because you could get your success, but you have poor health. It means nothing. So everyone wants health, alertness of mind. That's interesting, because in order to get prosperity and keep your health, you have to be very alert. You have to be very alert about your opportunities. When you're very alert about your opportunities, then you could get those favors, because the Neter is always opening the way for you. But if you don't have the eyes to see it, if you're too caught up in the immediacy of your circumstances, you won't see your favors. So when you on your purpose, With an alert mind, you see your favors, you take your favors. That opens you up to love. The person who's on their purpose and has favor in life means good rep and good energy. Those people are the easiest to love. But remember, love is myrrh. Myrrh is a plow. Plow is work. Plow is labor. So you gotta sometimes it gotta hurt. You gotta dig under the surface. You gotta plant those seeds. You gotta water it. You gotta be devoted. So love is not a given. So these things, life, prosperity, health, alertness, favors, and love, we could say are the beginnings to the Kemetic approach to having a quality life. So what you consider happiness and pleasure comes with the fulfillment of these requirements, and these are the Kemetic requisites of happiness. Happiness is not a goal. The goal is to become a divine being in the flesh. Not just a divine being in the flesh, but a divine being in the flesh who has access to their powers. Because divine being in the flesh, that's a worm is a divine being in the flesh too. So what distinguishes you, in a sense, when we be saying, oh, that's animalistic, and so the animals and worms and stuff are keeping it more real than we are, because they never deviate from their nature. A worm is never trying to be a tiger. A tiger is never trying to be a lion. And we walking around divine beings in the flesh, and what can I learn from the worm? What can I, like, you don't know who you are. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. You're supposed to be a divine being with access. So when you're a divine being in the flesh and have alertness of mind, when you look at things like health, you'll take health is bitter and sweet. Or maintaining when you could handle the bitter and sweet position that experiences in life, it's easy to maintain your health. Some people live in la la land and think life is supposed to be all sweetness. Some people on the opposite polarity think life is harsh and it's all bitterness and there's no good. Understand this irony. Most diseases that we experience in the West come from too much sweets. So now look at the emotional connections, sweetness and that. So we're striving too much for these pleasurable experiences that have thrown our body off chemistry. That the only way to bring the body back into chemistry is to take some bitters. Do you know bitters is the answer to cancer? I gotta do a disclaimer on that, because he said he cures cancer. When in the naturopathic field, when you get bitters into your system and alkalizes your system, that help your body, to bring your body back into balance. That's the safe way to say it. It brings your body back into balance. But brings the body back into balance through bitters. So you have to go to the opposite polarity sometimes. So what am I talking about? The bittersweet experiences of life. We have to be more mature about how we handle bitter and sweet experiences in life. Like, I'm into music production. Before, I was just an MC or rapper, and I would always get good beats, the rhyme awful, but the beats were always the producer's vision, and I either acquiesce to his vision or I don't like that beat. We play this game, find me something hot to rock to it. He's thinking that's all he's creating is hotness. But now I'm on the production side, and it's bitter and sweet. I absolutely hate it, but I love it at the same time, because now it's like I hate the fact that the technology be changing, but technology changing is good. It's made it actually easier for me. It's got me learning different. It's got me running on all cylinders in a way I wouldn't have been running on if I didn't take this endeavor. So that's the bitter side. And the sweet side is now I get to make music that was always in my head that I felt like the producers wasn't getting to it. So that's bitter and sweet. Those people who have children, that's a bittersweet experience. Some things that your children do and how they act, you absolutely hate it. But that's your babies. You love it. You love them, and you do anything for them. So it's the bitter and sweet things, and we have to watch how we manage those things. But I want to go on into prayer. So let me read it again from the top. It says, may he give, talking about Patah, may he give life, prosperity, health, alertness, favors, and love, and may my eyes see Amen every day. Let's stop there. What does Amen mean? Most people understand it to mean hidden. Amen means that which is concealed. So let us read it again. And may my eyes see Amen every day. May my eyes see that which is concealed every day. How can your eyes see that which is hidden? How can your eyes see that which is concealed? He says meditation. This is about being knowledgeable about how the divine flows and moves through your life. This is equivalent to the Christian script when it says all things come together for the good of those who love the Lord. So it's about the understanding of metaphysics, that which is beyond the physical. So it's interesting. Our ancestors are good with double entendre. So the double entendre was talking about Amen as a deity, but at the same time, it was talking about Amen as the principle of that which is concealed or not readily seen, or that which is hidden in plain sight. So yeah, he's talking about, may I see my God at work every day. That's the resolution of the two definitions of the divine being as well as the principle of unseen. May I see the nature at work every day.
Yeah.
Then it's saying, may my eyes see Amen every day, as is done for the Ma'atian person who has Amen in his heart. That's interesting. We read in English and then it goes to a middle netter word and back to English. It says, as is done for the Ma'atian person. Like, what is, some person reading like, what is a Martian person? A Martian person? As is done for the Ma'atian person who has Amen in his heart. Means knowledge of the unseen ways in his heart. So it's like when you see how the metaphysics of life work, the Creator works on your benefit, or it's easier to recognize that everything is working for you and not against you. But notice, I want to talk about, it says the Ma'atian person. The Ma'ati, they're taking that from the translation of the word Ma'ati. So we understand Ma'at means balance. We understand that Ma'at means centered. So it doesn't say, as is done for the happy person who has Amen in his heart. As is for the elated person, it doesn't say that. It says, as is for the centered person who has Amen in his heart. Because happy and elated, so here's another bomb. Happy and elated is a pole of emotion to sadness and depression. So you have these two extremities. So happy and elated over there, sadness and depression over there. It says, as is done for the Ma'atian person. So the Ma'at is in the center, so it depolarizes yourself from the negative influence of the extremity. So what it's saying in secret, that being overly happy or overly elated is just as much as a disease as being sad and happy, because it's at extremity and we're supposed to be centered. So yeah, it's going to talk about your maturity and how you handle the bitter and sweet experiences. That's why it says, as is done for the Ma'atian person who has Amen in his heart. Being, like I said, being centered depolarizes or neutralizes the negative effects of the extremities. So then I look at another prayer by someone named Ptah Asar. He makes a statement. He said, he or she who keeps his mind, he or she who keeps his heart on the way of God maintains his lifespan on earth. He or she who has great respect of God in his heart, his or her heart, has great favor on earth. That was poetic and that was bars at the same time. He or she who keeps his or her heart on the way of God maintains his or her lifespan on earth. He or she who has great respect of God in his or her heart has great favor upon the earth. So let's go back and translate. He or she who keeps his or her heart on the way of God. So now, we talk about double entendres again. So what is the heart again? What is the translation of heart? Or what do we interchange with heart when we talk in English? And what is our understanding of the heart?
It's like the conscience.
The conscious, the mind. So now look at it. Say, he or she who keeps their mind or their consciousness on the way of God, and we know God is netter. We're comedicizing this English translation. So I'm trying to get you to think how Africans think. So he or she who keeps his mind or consciousness on the way of netter, that's Wat's netir. That is the path of netir. So if netter is the most high, if netter is the divine, what is the way? The way, how do we know the way of Netzah? Because that's vague. That's only vague to people who just read history. It's not vague to practitioners. Practitioners know the way of the Netzah through oracle, through reading, through what we call tepred, by getting your charge. Let's go again. He or she who keeps his mind on the way of God. So we're talking about not just tepred, but the proper interpretation of tepred, not just the broad strokes. When people get readings and they just go with the broad strokes, the reading's always going to say, oh, you need to pray more, you need to meditate more, you need to fast, but there's a wisdom there. You have to connect. The wisdom is always subtle. So the broad strokes is pray more, meditate more. So you could be rolling your eyes. It's just going to come back and say, I need to pray more. I've been praying. But do you respect what meditation is? Or are you just sitting there struggling with your thoughts? That's what a lot of people are doing with their meditation. They just sitting there going through a meditation ritual, struggling with their thoughts. And they never quite get to meditation. Well, what about prayer? Are you praying or are you just doing a prayer ritual? So these are the things that you have to figure out when you get these broad strokes of these readings. You have to figure out. Because what you figure, and nobody's gonna make it totally easy for you. You gotta, like, you're supposed to be a divine being in the flesh. Figure it out. Slow down. Learn how to respect the process of meditation. Learn how to properly pray. Meaning, learn and listen to your teachers instruct you on these things, and stop acting like you know already, and stop trying to marginalize the necessity for this conversation with the Creator. The conversation is praying, meaning I speak, then I gotta listen. He or she who keeps their mind or their consciousness on the way of Netzah, the Wat Netzah, maintains his lifespan on earth. So that's interesting. So when you follow the broad strokes of your readings and the subtle points of your readings, you are aligned to the divine. And when you're aligned to divine, that is the key to the foundation. That is the key and the foundation to holistic health. Because it maintains his or her lifespan on earth. So it ain't gonna work if you're just taking the vitamins. It ain't gonna work if you're just taking the supplements. You can't medicate yourself back into wholeness. It has to start with your consciousness. And it has to start with you getting back on divine time, divine plan. Not your own selfish desires or illusions of yourself, your personal satisfaction. It goes on to say, he or she who has great respect of God in his or her heart has great favor on earth. Let's go over it. He or she who has great respect of God in his heart. We said the heart is the mind, right? He or she who has great respect of God in his or her mind or consciousness has great favor upon the earth. That reads totally different when you say it that way. He or she who has great respect for the divine plan in their consciousness, meaning when you live in your life by divine law, meaning there's a law of the day, there's a law of the hour, there's a law of a whole cycle of several weeks, there's a law of a cycle of several months. So when you live by that in your conscious mind, you have great favor on the earth. Pretty much says, how could you fail if that's how you've really been living your life? So he or she who has great respect of God, and just so y'all know, the respect of God's laws is the definition of righteousness. People see righteousness and they just think it's about acting nice and so-called doing the right thing. It's about respect of the divine law. That is righteousness. So let's look at it that way. He or she who has respect for divine law in his consciousness has great favor on earth. Meaning you can't fail. So it goes back to what Nefer Abu was wanting in his prayer. He's wanting life. He was wanting prosperity. He was wanting health. He was wanting alertness. He was wanting favor again. He said favor upon the earth and love. So you get those things once you consciously keep the laws of the divine in your mind. So it's telling us that the theme of this is centeredness and discipline is how you gain respect and clout. And when you don't have centeredness and discipline, that's how you lose clout. Mm-hmm. So all in all, in closing, we're not in the clear. We still have some tough times and some tough things to get through. But Ma'at is our governor. Mm-hmm. And Ma'at is the governor through the process of the year, and they can get the reading of the year where?
templeofanu.org. in the storefront. It's available as a digital download.
So let us strive our best to stay centered at all times. Let us strive to be equitable at all times in all things. Let us strive to be fair and reciprocal in all things and at all times. And more importantly, it is our righteousness. What does righteousness mean again?
Respect for divine law.
Okay, so it is our respect for divine law that is our protection.
Do our mentor.
And I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I know it's on the short side, but it is what it is. I think we hit some very significant and poignant points.
Do our mentor. Yeah, so that's a good place to stop. Leave them with something to think about, some things to meditate on, to reflect on.
Some things to donate about.
I was gonna say empower you, but speaking of donations, we appreciate the donations that you all send to us as reciprocity. Reciprocity is one of the principles of Ma'at. And so in demonstrating Ma'at, we appreciate the energy that you send to us in the form of your donations, which can be sent to us by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com or Cash App $Temple Your energy, respect, love is greatly appreciated. We are able to do this work because of your support, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate the presence and the time of even those who cannot donate at this time. Please continue to join us for our regularly scheduled communions. We want to see you here. So our next communion will be in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, which is Sunday, March 6th. Sunday, March 6th. I think Sunday, March 6th is the day. We'll be back here again at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on both YouTube and Facebook Live. We have not yet determined a date for resuming our in-person services, but when we do, we'll let you all know. And those of you who are local to the area will be able to come out and join us and have our communion with us in person. But for now, we'll continue to meet you all and greet you all and converse with you all in this forum. So we'll see y'all 2 weeks from today, again at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do on that to everyone. Show me what's up.
Show me what's up.